Good afternoon, everyone. I am just got off work. I thought I'd make a quick video. It is another beautiful day here in Western Michigan. Using my old cigar cutter, smoking a Kentucky Fire Cure. Just took the band off. I can show you the band there. I'm using my old cutter and my cheap lighter because I lost my last lighter that has a built-in cutter with it. It was expensive and it is gone. I know I put it somewhere, probably in something I was wearing. I've checked all my clothes, but I cannot seem to find where that is at. So I will go back to this, and someday in the future, I'm sure I will find it. This one cuts a much bigger end, more air to go through. I kind of like the V cut. It's not too bad. But it's an absolutely gorgeous day again. You probably noticed I have my flannel on. It's been a couple months. I've got a vest on, my fleece vest. Too much wind for smoke rings. It's about 55, so that's cool. It's perfect out here. Sun shining, blue skies. Everything has, all the trees have got their leaves, so they're not falling in my yard where I've got to pick them up yet. Probably 6 years ago now, we had some tree place come out and took out about 7 trees from here, giant trees. One was right above me. Makes the yard grow a little bit more. I used to get by with cutting the backyard probably 3 or 4 times a summer because there was so much shade. Now I have to cut it like 8 times, which still is not too bad because we still have quite a bit of shade. I had DirecTV come out right before that. I was going to ask them to hook up DirecTV, and poor guy got out of his van and he started shaking his head and he said, "Nope, can't do it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You'd have to take out at least 50 trees for me to even put this in. You have no line of sight." Oh goodness, almost feels kind of chilly. I like the trees. I don't like the leaves that come down, but I do like the trees. So we took out some just to get more for planting. Took out quite a few. I cut down about 15 trees out in the back. One almost fell on me. I was pulling it. It snapped and I saw it coming down, and then I ended up falling. I looked up and it was quickly coming at me. And I just dove out of the way. It missed me by about, 4 feet. That was, it hit hard behind me. Just, those limbs at the top were moving. So that would have, if that had hit me, I would not be here making this video today, that's for sure. But yeah, we've taken some of the trees out. It's still, I see my Generac is going on. I'm not sure how loud that is, but I'm going to pause this. That went down. Every month it comes on, checks its ability to do what it needs to do. If you don't have a house generator, if you have the chance to put one in, I mean, they're very nice. Since putting that one in a couple years ago, I've used it maybe 4 or 5 times. We have storms that come through this area. We can be without power for 8 hours to the longest I've been without in those 4 times was 4 days. There wasn't even a storm that came through. It was the oddest thing. It's like, I don't know what was happening. They just said trees is all they said was the problem. Runs off natural gas, so it's kind of nice. You always get to supply natural gas. But it is a gorgeous day. Absolutely gorgeous day out here. We did get rain the last couple of days. That was nice. Gave all the trees and all the flora a good drink before we get into the fall weather. Although I understand we're supposed to get back up into the 80s, maybe even 90 next week. So it's just the fact that we are 8 weeks to the end of the year. It does not feel like Michigan at all. Even growing up in Alabama, I don't think it was this hot. But I was able to get a haircut this week. Got my beard trimmed and got the haircut. Try to look more like a civilized person. I don't know if it worked. But you know what they say, the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut is? It's about a week. And I'm 4 days in, so about another 2 days and this will actually start hopefully looking right. Do enjoy these Tucky Fire Cure. I have noticed just in smoking this one, having such a large end, I guess you bring more air in, it does smoke a lot faster. So I think the V-cut, because it's smaller, it doesn't let as much air in, so you probably get a little bit longer smoke. It's an easy smoke. Draw on this is very, very good. I picked up some that were a bargain cigar, $2-3 a piece, and I noticed that half of the ones that I would get, Drew Estate or something like that, were seconds. So it's the cuttings, I understand it's the cuttings that are on the floor and what goes around, they package that up, put somewhat of a sweetener to it, and they sell those as seconds, and they're like, I don't know, $1.50, $2 a piece. But what I've experienced in buying those is I can barely draw. And they're just every third one or something I have to throw away because you can't actually draw anything through them. I understand there's a tool you can push to go all the way through and that kind of open it up. I don't have that yet, but when you buy these, I mean, they are, I don't know, right now these are about $10 a piece. They do smoke so much better, and it just, you're not having to throw stuff away or trying to suck a golf ball through a garden hose, so that's good. The wind kind of comes and goes, a little breeze here that brings it down where it's a little bit colder, but it's not too bad. I had a great time with the live feed that I was able to do. That's my first one. Now, second one, the first one was kind of a test. But my first one this past Sunday, I'm gonna have to, instead of doing it at 7, I'll have to do it at 6. 7 o'clock, started getting a little bit too dark out here. Sun was going down. Soon that'll be at 5. But I'll try 6 o'clock, and I may have to actually go on down to 5. I may just put it at 5. That'd be best. As fall gets on, one of the things I always try to do for the first of the year is to, and it stopped testing. I always try to make a list of books that I want to read for the coming year. Several books that I've been identifying. Some of them on the early history of America. I'm talking about the colonial period, but kind of the pre-Indian. There's a lot of archaeological discoveries that people have made that they say, how do we understand these Native American artifacts that we find? So I've identified 2 books on that. I do want to read through Francis Schaeffer's complete works. He was a theologian, philosopher, 1960s. Started the L'Abri movement, a house that was in Switzerland. He lived here, but he moved to Switzerland and had a chalet in Switzerland, and people would just come in, and it was just a time, the 60s was a very volatile time. I don't remember it. I wasn't born until the end of the 60s. But I do know from history, it was a very volatile time. A lot of ideologies that were going back and forth, a lot of demonstrations. Seemed a lot like our day today. People on different sides. And but he addressed a lot of those issues, and that was what he had done. He was kind of an apologist, a cultural apologist. Not apologist in the sense of, I apologize, but using the Greek apologia, meaning to give a reasoned defense, a rational defense for something. And he started a L'Abri, which was kind of having people come into the house. They would stay for a couple of weeks and they'd move on. And it was a time of just teaching and kind of infusing his life, his knowledge into other people. So he has a complete works. I'd like to read through that. There's a couple books that I want to read that's on medieval history. And some on the Second Temple period. So between about 500 and 70 AD. Palestinian, the period there of Palestine, Israel, as it was known at the time, but as it kind of goes back, and you have the 4 major cultures that moved in there, empires. Babylon, Syria that was there first, but Babylon from 586, and then you go into the Greeks, or the Persians, then you have the Greeks, then you have the Romans. You know, the early classical period, that's always been an interesting time. I seem to like all the periods. I did finish my crafting table. I have a gaming table I've talked about building, but I finished the crafting table. This evening I'm going to go down and arrange everything on it. I'll see if I can put a video up on that here later. And what I got to do is put my pot lights in, and then I can start working on the game table. I've had several people ask me about the library, doing another tour. I'm going to do that before I build a game table, because that'll give me more room to walk around. But there's just a few more pieces to paint and move out, straighten up, and that will be renovated. I've got to come back out here and finish the big greenhouse down there, hoop house, I think is what it's called. I got to get the doors on the end. That may be a next week project. See if I can get that going. But what are some of the things that you read? Love to hear, do you make a list? It used to be when I was growing up, I know my parents, we'd get together with our close family. We only had my cousins. It was my mother's sister. We'd get with them when I was growing up, and one of the things that they would always do was have New Year's resolutions. It was always the same resolution. I'm going to lose weight. That was always it. I don't know why people were so fascinated with that, but lose weight. So people joined gyms. People started eating right. I would last to about January 3rd, and that was be done. By the time I hit about 10th grade, I guess, those things had stopped. I don't know of anyone who does New Year's resolutions, but there is something psychological, I guess, about, and you could apply it to different times of the year. You could apply it to a sense of a beginning. You could put it to the spring. Everything is coming to life. You could say that's the time. A lot of people say that's the start of culture. Some cultures have that as kind of the start of the year. The fall is another time for people to kind of start things because you've gone through summer and vacations, and people go back to school, so you get back in a routine, and that's kind of a start of a year. But I don't know, for me, it always has been kind of January. Is you just kind of start in the civil year, and there's something about making those plans as I go through this year. What am I going to read? What am I going to do? What are some of the things I want to accomplish? But do any of you do that? I mean, I have certain projects I want to complete during the year, but reading is one of the big ones. And usually it's not really reading. It's more studying on certain big topics. Now, I'll pick out books that go with it, but during the year, I'll kind of modify those because I'll find a book that's like, well, this is a better book on it, or here's another book, and I'll add to it, or maybe take something away. But is that something you do? Kind of a reading list, or maybe it's a project list or a hobby list. I'm going to start with these hobbies. I've been told by multiple people that I am a person who subscribes to whims. I don't know if I'm necessarily a person who subscribes to whims. All the things that I do float from one hobby to another, but the hobbies are always connected. I've enjoyed that because it's allowed me to kind of dig deep into a host of different things, whether it's carpentry or building or gaming or gardening or photography, reading. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've gone into. Now that I've finished updating the basement, at least as far as bookcases, I've looked back and I thought, man, I really have a sickness when it comes to books. There's a lot of books down there. And it looks like I have one more small wall that's about 8 or 9 feet wide that I can build bookcases on. It'll be over the top of a door. It's about 2 or 3 feet on each side of the door, and I can go over the top, kind of make it an archway. It goes into the actual library. I'll show that when I do the tour, but as I was looking at it, I thought that really is the only area left. Everything else is taken up with other bookcases. I think I could probably survive a nuclear blast down there. I mean, in addition to the walls that are poured cement, there's at least a foot thick of books. So I got that going for me. And actually, I didn't spend very much money on the books. I worked in publishing for many years. So I would go to book conferences, and I mean, there would be 100 different vendors there from different places, and you would just give your book to them and you take some of their books. So I'd always bring 2 extra bags with me, and I'd pack the other 2 extra bags just with 30 or 40 books, and I'd bring those home, and it wouldn't cost me anything. I'd get complimentary copies from different friends. A lot of stuff that I bought has been used. So I really haven't spent that much money on books. It looks like it's a lot. No, it probably is a lot. Yeah. Makes me feel better when I say I didn't spend that much money on it. There was 2 years that looked at our expenses, and I actually spent more money on books than I did on food. That was us as a family. I have 2 kids, and they didn't go hungry. They weren't deprived anything, so don't worry about that. This was just above that, but it was like, wow, I spent more money on books than I did on food. That was kind of eye-opening. But some of it has just been I bought a couple libraries from other people, retiring, people that didn't want them anymore. And they say, for $500, I have, 800 books or something, or maybe 600 books. And it's like, well, that's like $1 a book. That's pretty good. But the majority of my books have come from publishing, which has been really nice. So that's good. I showed you the color of the wall. This is the color of my desk, the white. Almost looks like I don't take a shower. I do take a shower. I just missed that part. I did scrub it. No, that was from this morning. That's why. Yeah. It was after I had a shower. I got paint on me. I was trying to clean stuff up. Or maybe some of the things you read is fantasy. I've done that too. I usually try to read through Lord of the Rings each year, and The Hobbit. Try to read through the Narniad, C.S. Lewis. I think I used to shy away from fantasy. I have always loved fantasy. When I was in high school, I played Dungeons and Dragons with friends. I was a geek then. I'm still a geek now, which is why I've written my own RPG role-playing game. But I've always enjoyed fantasy. I want to write a novel. I'm kind of in the midst of that. But I used to think that I always felt guilty by reading fantasy, because it's like, man, there's so many other things out there I could read. I could be reading science or math or history or something like that. And it's like, I felt guilty. But then it hit me several years ago. I just thought, the idea of the imagination is very important. Sometimes we don't nurture that part of our life. And you go into the fantasy, you go into whether it's science fiction or whether it's fantasy. I kind of classify all of them as fantasy. They're not non-real, but it's actually a very important part, I think, of people's lives. Of having that, because imagination runs everything. I mean, everything we have is interpreted. That's part kind of your imagination. We think of imagination, I guess, more as something that's fictitious, but you can imagine all kinds of stuff. The table I bought, or I built, anytime I build something, I have to imagine it in my head. And as I finished it, I stood back and I thought, that's exactly what I imagined. I was building that thing. I had to figure out how to put it all together. So I think sometimes the imagination is very important. And I like reading fantasy, so I'll put a couple of books, some new books in there for this next year. But yeah, if you have a chance, write in, some of the things, that you read are things that you read each year. Maybe there's a particular book that you read, or a type of book. But I'd love to know some of the things that other people do as they kind of plan for the new year. See, the sun is starting to move and starting to come over toward me. So I will end this here. I'm almost done with my cigar. I'm about to burn. I can feel the heat. I know when to stop because I can feel the heat on my fingers. Yeah, it probably has another 5 minutes. If you're not crying, it really isn't that close to your fingers. I hope that the next time I do this video, I have found my lighter that has my cutter in it. It's got to be around here somewhere. It just has to be. No one stole it. That's a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke. Well, you take care. We'll talk to you soon, and have a great weekend.